Hi everybody, this is TheGreenFrog here, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a math video on fractional exponents. So this is going to be where you have a number raised to an exponent, but that exponent is a fraction. So we're going to start with the simpler side of things, which is when you have a fraction which has a numerator of 1. So what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to be writing down something real quick. And this is for most numbers. I'll explain that in a second. So we have b over 1, or b to the power of 1 over n. Then that is equal to the nth root of b. Now what I mean by that, if you've never seen any sort of root before, if you have like a square root, like something like this, where there's no number in here, like this with this little weird looking division sign with a little, looks like a check mark and a division and a long division symbol kind of morphed into one. That's a square root symbol, basically saying what number squared equals 16. Now we know 4 squared equals 16, so the square root of 16 equals 4. Now if we have something like this, where we have something like a 64 in here and then we have a little 3, this is the cube root. A square root really should have a 2 in there, but no one writes it because we just use square roots a lot. But if we need something else, we will write that number in like that. So this is pronounced the cube root of 64, meaning what number cubed equals 64, and we know that 4 cubed equals 64, which means that the cube root of 64 equals 4, because 4 cubed equals 64. Now I hope I didn't go through that too quickly. I just want to make sure that I don't spend too much on this, so that we'll have time for everything else in the video. So that's basically what that is, and if you're allowed to use a calculator for whatever problems you're doing, then you can also plug square roots and any other root into your calculator for it to do it for you. So after I erase this real quick, we shall be able to move on. So, as I explained up here, for most numbers here, we have that b to the 1 over n equals the nth root of b. Why I'm saying most numbers is because, like, if we have like 1 over 0, we don't want 1 over 0, because that's like dividing by 0. So we wouldn't want n to be 0, and if it's like b to the 1 over 1, or yeah, if n is 1, it's b to the 1, so we don't really need anything special there. So we're really only concerned with this if n is at least 2, because if it's 0, well, we don't want to divide by 0. If it's 1, well, you're just doing b to the 1. You don't need complicated stuff to do b to the 1. So we're really only concerned with this if n is greater than 2. And we're also not going to be looking at if we have like -5 to the 1/2. We don't really want to look at that, because that's the square root of -5. We don't really like the square root of -5, because whether it's a negative or it's positive that's being multiplied by itself twice, then we don't really want to look at that, because they're both going to be positive. And if it was like -5 to the 1/3, well, we're just not going to be concerned with that today. In this video, I'm only going to be showing you like a b that is like greater than 1, because if it's 1, well, 1 to the anything is just 1, and if it's 0 or negative, well, we're just not going to be worrying about that today. So if we have an example here, like I might show you before how I said the square root of 16 is 4. If we have 4, or nope, sorry, not 4. If we have 16 to the 1/2, that's just saying square root of 16, which is 4. So that's nice and simple. And if we have something like, I don't know, if we take 125 to the power of 1/3, that is the same as the cube root of 125. So what number multiplied by itself 3 times is 125? Well, that's 5. Because 5 times 5 is 25. We multiply it by 5 one more time, and we get a nice 125. So that is all set there. So that's with the 1 over n. Quite simple. Nothing too crazy there, just some roots. Now, if we extend this a little bit, instead of an n, we're going to put an m there. Okay? Now, there are two things we could do. We could do this, or we could do this. And I'll explain both those in a second. And here, we're also going to be saying that right now in this video, I'm going to be concerning where m is at least 1. Obviously, if it's 1, we already know what to do. We just explained that. And we're just not going to be worrying right now about other stuff. So we're just going to be worrying about when m is greater than or equal to 1. That's all I'm going to be explaining in this video. So, you can see there are two things that look a little bit different, but in this case, they are both fine to use. Some are better in other. Sometimes one of them is better than others, than the other one. So if we have like b, or I'm not. Why am I using b? I'm not sure why I'm using b. So if I do something here like 256 to the power of 3/4, using our little definition here, I'm going to look at the second case right now because it's a lot easier. So we're going to be looking at, we want to look, this n is the root, the denominator. So we have a 4th root of 256, and then that whole thing is being cubed, because you can see here, numerator becomes the power. Numerator becomes the power. So if we look at this, we're saying what number multiplied by itself 4 times is 256? That turns out to be 4, because that's 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. And then if you multiply that by 4 one more time, you get a nice 256. Then we just need to keep that power, and that just becomes 64. So just like that, we have that now. But if we were to go the other way, which is valid, we can do this. So we can say this is equal to the 4th root of 256 to the 3rd. There was the difference here is that instead of taking the 4th root of 256 and then cubing it, we're going to cube 256 first and then take the 4th root. You can see why this is not the best option, but I'll go with it anyway. So if I use my nice handy dandy calculator here to figure out what 256 to the 3rd is, that ends up being 16,777,216, and we said before that the answer should be 64, so we're going to assume that for now, and we shall check, because if I go into my handy dandy calculator and do 64 to the 4th, we get 16,777,216, which means that 64 to the 4th power is this thing, which means that the 4th root of this thing is 64. So in this case, for what we're doing with these fractional exponents, these two are actually come out to the same answer, whether we take the root first and then cube, or whether we cube first and then take the root. In this case, they both come out to the same answer. But obviously, taking the root first in this case is a lot easier, because when you take the root first, you don't have to worry about finding the 4th root of 16,777,216. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to do by hand. So, not a super long video, but I think that's all I have to show, because that was a nice example there. So I'm hoping that that should be good, should be enough, so that you guys will know what to do. So I hope this video was helpful to you, and please leave a like on the video and subscribe to my channel. Check down in the description, because if there are any errors that I made after I rendered the video, then they'll be down there, so that I can let you know. And I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye!